Hi there, it's Friday the 27th of March, day 19 of Church Without Walls. I think all the days seem to run into each other at the moment. And we're looking at the book of Revelation, which of course is difficult to understand and many passages can be quite bamboozling, to be honest. But there are verses which do stand out to us and can speak to us quite powerfully. And one of those verses for me is found in chapter 2 and verse 10. And at the end of the verse it says this: "Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life." Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life. I don't know what comes into your mind when you think of that word faithful. For me, it's quite mixed. I'm encouraged by my faithfulness sometimes, but I'm also discouraged by my unfaithfulness. And sometimes it's easy to feel guilty and feel that we're not quite meeting the mark of being faithful. It also makes me think of another mark, and that is the mark of the beast. And if I was going to be there at that time and that mark was offered, would I take it or would I not? Would I stand up for Jesus or not? If I was in one of those countries where there is severe persecution, would I stand up for Jesus or not at that moment, at that point in time? But actually, being faithful, to be honest, is not about those isolated instances. That's not a test in one sense of our faithfulness. Being faithful is about our life. It is about a long time. Are we faithful in the long term? Does our life generally follow the Lord? Are we generally following the Lord? Now, we are not going to follow the Lord 100%. None of us are. We are not going to be faithful in every one of these isolated instances because we are not Jesus. Only He was 100% faithful. So there are going to be times when we are unfaithful to the Lord, and we're going to be like Peter. And we're going to let the Lord down, and we're going to feel guilty and bad about that. But the Bible says that a righteous man, though he falls 7 times or 70 times or 700 times, every time the Lord picks him up, dusts us down, and we get back on the path again. So really, when we're asking, are we being faithful? We are asking ourselves, is our life heading in the direction of the Lord? Are we in the long term following Him? And that really actually is a mark of our faithfulness. That word "to be faithful" in the verse there is the Greek word pistos. It means trustworthy, reliable, faithful. But interestingly, the root word actually comes from the Greek word which means to be persuaded. Are we being persuaded? Are we being faithful? Are we being persuaded? Are we persuaded that the Lord is the one to follow? Are we persuaded that He is able to keep us, that He is able to look after us, that He is able to give us the peace, the grace, the strength, the courage, that all that we need through this difficult time? Are we persuaded, and are we able to persuade others of that fact that Jesus is the only hope of the nation? It reminds me of the verse in 2 Timothy, a great verse that Paul says, and it can be our verse for today. "I am not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed, and I am persuaded that He is able to keep that which I've committed unto Him for that day." In these days, let us be persuaded that He is able, and let us be faithful to Him. Bless you. Speak to you again tomorrow.